Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today we're going to be messing around with budget PCs. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, on today's video we're going to be messing around with our Sahara P10 Sync case and our budget build that we put in here. So if you're wondering what is actually going on in here, you can find out more if you click on the link up here. This was a build that we did on the live stream last Saturday, and this PC is destined for a new home, so we've been just tweaking a few things to try and work out what is going to be the best value options to go for, keeping the PC nice and cheap and cheerful, but also making it look quite nice at the same time. Now, one of the things which we have done originally in the build, there was the Ryzen 5 1400, which is a very cost-effective processor, but we actually switched the budget down a few gears and we've put in the Athlon 200GE. Also at the same time, we've downgraded the RAM. Previously we had 16 gigs of RAM, whereas now we've gone down to 2 sticks of 4 gigs, so 8 gigs. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm not entirely happy with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to change a few things around and make a few changes and hopefully make things a little bit better, and also bring it still within the budget that we were trying to aim for. So at the moment, currently in there is 200GE, 8 gigs of RAM. We're using the onboard graphics, so things aren't particularly great. It runs, it's fine, it does what it's supposed to do, but I'd like to have it have a little bit more horsepower. What we're going to do now is we're going to put in an older GTX 660 Ti, which for gaming isn't the greatest choice, but is certainly more powerful than the Vega graphics on board on there, and it's also a very cheap option. Although it does take up a little bit of power, it still is going to be much better than onboard graphics. Even with the Ryzen 3 2200G, this thing still trounces all over it in terms of real world gaming performance. Also, we've managed to pick up some cheap OEM RAM. Now this is RAM from Gold Key. We've got 2 8 gig sticks. It's only DDR2133, but hopefully we can overclock that a little bit. But again, it's 16 gigs for the price of 8 gigs essentially, so we've done pretty well there. Now the other thing which we're going to change is the cooling. Now originally we just used the stock cooler. I did put a water cooling solution in there, but again, that was taking things way over what our budget was intended for. It was good for the video, but unfortunately it's not a good idea for the long term. So what we're going to do is we've actually put the stock cooler in from the 200GE, which I'm not sure if you can quite pick up on the microphone, but there is a nasty kind of whine to it, which is understandable. It's a very budget cooler. It's not great. So what we're going to do is, we've actually been sent a sample. This is a while back actually. We were sent a pre-production sample from our friends over at Sahara, and they asked us to check it out. Now there was a few issues which, because again it was a pre-production sample, there was a few little kinks that need to be ironed out. But actually for this particular build it's going to work out perfectly. So the fan itself, which is underneath this box here, we'll have a quick look at. So it is cooled, well hopefully it's going to be cooled when it actually gets released in the new year. This is the Sahara Iced Rainbow. Now this fan is a CPU cooler fan up to 95 watts TDP. So it's not designed for overclocking, all those kinds of things, but it's designed to add a little bit of bling to those budget builds, which for this is absolutely perfect. And being that this is using the P10 Sync, which has already got the controller in there, this is literally going to be plug and play pretty much. And also it's going to look awesome. Now a little bit in depth of what this is all about. So this is only designed to work with the Sahara Gaming Pirate Turbo Fan Controller Box or the Sahara Gaming Sync Fan Controller Box. Now the Sync Controller Fan Box is built into this case, so that's all well and good. But if you're getting this as a retail product, there's a very, very strong likelihood that you'll be getting one of these boxes with it. So this box is going to have all the goodies inside it to actually connect up to your case. So the actual case isn't going to be a problem. You can put it into pretty much any build you want to using the supplied fixings and all the bits and bobs in here. So essentially you've got a remote control, so RF remote control, so you can control things like your lighting and all that kind of stuff, fan speeds. You can actually choose between auto or manual mode. So if you want to take control of your fan speeds, you can just press the buttons on here, or if you want the motherboard to take control of things, you can just press the auto button, that'll take care of it. And the same is for the RGB as well. So if you've got a motherboard which actually has its own RGB controller, which is quite a good one, which in a lot of cases these days actually there are very far and few between that actually have a decent RGB controller, whereas the Sahara one actually is really nice and user friendly, and you've got tons and tons of buttons and configurations, so you can go crazy with the RGB and have it exactly how you want. So you get the remote control. You get a connector which connects up your PWM header and also your addressable RGB header, and then sends that to a pass-through cable which can attach to the control unit. So So the control unit can control, I think it's up to 8 different devices, which I'll just double check now. So no, actually 10 devices, so you can have up to 10 fans or RGB strips connected, or a combination therein, and all you need to control that, or to power it rather, is a single SATA connector. Now the controller itself actually has its own buttons on board for manual control. Realistically, you're never going to use those because it's far easier to use the remote control or control it via your motherboard. But those are there and built in, so you can change fan speed high or low, change RGB functions, all those kinds of things. You can also connect up the reset button on your case. So if you wanted to, you can use the reset button and cycle through all the different colors, etc. But essentially all you need to do is plug in one connector into the top of the controller, and then these 2 connectors to PWM and your RGB, and that synchronizes your motherboard with the controller, with the fans, and you're all ready to go. So it's actually a really nice little system. It can work with pretty much any motherboard on the market, as long as you've got a PWM header for your CPU, and you don't necessarily need an RGB controller at all, which is actually great because the motherboard that we've got inside this build has no RGB on it whatsoever. So it's literally a matter of using what the case can provide. So I think I've probably waffled up enough about the controller. Let's take another look at the cooler itself. So the Rainbow cooler is suitable for the LGA 775, 1155, 1156 and 1366 CPUs. So slightly limited on what it'll fit Intel wise, but again, this is a pre-production sample, so that may change in a later video. And I will actually do an update of this when I get the new cooler come through, so keep watching for those for the information on that. AMD wise, you can use this for AM4, AM2, FM1, AM3+, AM3, AM2+, and AM2. So because this is using the standard AMD type retention lugs, you don't have to worry about having a backplate or anything like that. And actually, again, in this particular instance where we're using the Athlon 200GE, which actually does make use of the original plastic lugs on the motherboard, again, literally a matter of unclasping the old cooler and putting the new one in. So it's probably a good idea now to stop waffling and get on with this. So I'm going to go ahead, change the RAM, put the graphics card in, we're going to swap out the CPU, and then we're going to install the cooler, connect up the cooler to the control box on the back, fire it up and take a look and see what it's like. Okay, so that was an interesting little build project. Something which I thought was going to take very little time is actually taking me a long time due to certain circumstances beyond my knowledge and control. We started the build and you may have noticed already that the power supply is slightly different in there. Now the power supply that I've put in there now is a different one altogether, so I've put in a Novatech power station power unit because I didn't have enough connectors on my previous power supply for this graphics card. So may still make some further changes to this further down the road, but essentially it was a good learning curve and it gave me an experience of this CPU cooler and the whole setup. Using the remote control now is actually really handy, so for changing things like the speed, so if I put it on fan speed I can turn the fan speed up, which you can possibly hear ramping up now. Turn it right up, full blast, or put it onto motherboard control and it'll PWM control. So that's really good. And also then obviously we've got other controls. So we've got our lighting control, so we can go ahead and change the lighting sequences at our leisure. So there's various different programs available, so you can go through and change certain things, speeds, etc., but all from the handy remote control. So you don't have to go delving into your BIOS or into software. You can just change it all from there. Now personally I think the CPU cooler itself, actually a really good idea. It's a 120mm fan on there. It's pretty easy to install. The clip is a little bit fiddy and does require a little bit of extra force to get it on there, but again no different from some of the older AM2 and AM3 fans that we're used to from years ago. So again, not a deal breaker in any way, shape or form. I actually quite like that mounting option, and it means you don't have to take the motherboard apart or take the backplate off to actually install it. So there's a thumbs up from me for that one. But essentially it's been a very seamless sort of operation. The fact that it's in a Sahara P10 Sync case obviously goes in its favour, but it's a nice little ecosystem. So using the remote control and the controller, you can add on the cooler, you can add on the Pirate Ring fans. There's all sorts of different fans, shapes, sizes, etc., and they all work really nicely together with that little ecosystem, and it's all powered from a single SATA. So if you are planning to do a build, maybe in a slightly cheaper case, you want to add a bit of extra bling to it, certainly a good way to go. But in the meantime, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. This has been the Sahara Pirate Sync and the P10 Sync and also the Rainbow Cooler. And hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.